Two AEW stars leaving or gone from the company. A former AEW star debuted on NXT, as well as the TNA Forbidden Door reopening. Tony Khan might be disappointed with Warner Bros. Discovery's media rights deal, and more. I'm Pete Quinnell, and this is the WrestleTalk News.
Support WrestleTalk!
Hello, it's me doing the news today, and of course, I'm wearing the correct merch. Get yours at WrestleShop.com today. Me and Ollie have been repping the correct side of this argument, and... wait a second. Does he know? AEW has had a huge year in terms of signing new talent, with the three big ones being Kazuchika Okada, Mercedes Moné, and Will Ospreay. But while the big names have been signed, some other names have been departing the company, with AEW even releasing talent from their contracts for the very first time. Mark Henry, Matt Hardy, and Shawn Spears have all announced their departure in recent months, with the latter two even showing up in TNA and NXT respectively. In this case though, there are two more AEW roster members that are either gone already or will be leaving soon due to their contracts expiring. The first is former WWE World Heavyweight Champion Jake Hager, whom Bodyslam.net is reporting is already a free agent. His contract reportedly expired and he chose not to re-sign, with him and AEW mutually agreeing to part ways. Hager had been All Elite since the very beginning, joining them in 2019 and being part of Chris Jericho's Inner Circle faction, which debuted on the inaugural episode of Dynamite. Meanwhile, another AEW original since 2019 has announced he'll be leaving the company too, that being Arn Anderson. Anderson revealed on his podcast that once his contract expires on May 31st, he'll be gone from AEW. Anderson's on-screen role had diminished since his son, Brock Anderson, had left the company, but he had been working as a producer for quite a while. It suddenly is starting to feel more and more like a new era in AEW, with originals leaving and a slew of new talent joining. But what happens to that talent once they leave AEW? Well, one of the names I didn't mention in the list of people who've recently left AEW is Ethan Page. While not an AEW original, he had been in the company since 2021, signing a 3-year deal. That contract then expired, and he was free to pursue pastures new, and those pastures have led him to NXT. Page debuted on last night's episode of NXT, being revealed as the mystery attacker who'd taken out both Noam Dar and Oro Mensah, as well as on last night's episode attacking Trick Williams and holding the NXT title aloft. Fightful Select have confirmed that Ethan Page has in fact signed with WWE, but his debut was very much kept a secret, with him not being backstage during the day or being present for rehearsals. Page's deal was reportedly finalized this past week and had a secretive WWE Performance Center visit too. As someone who very much likes Ethan Page, I hope he gets to do great things in NXT. Being inserted straight into the NXT title picture is certainly a good start. But he wasn't the only shocking person to be revealed on this episode of NXT to be going for a world championship, as Roxanne Perez's challenger for an NXT Women's World title was also a surprise. For the second time, TNA's Jordynne Grace appeared in WWE following her awesome appearance in the Women's Royal Rumble earlier this year, which I still don't think Luke is over. Grace was confirmed to be Perez's opponent for NXT Battleground, which is fantastic. It's great to see WWE working with TNA again. It can only lead to great things. And Jordynne Grace is rad. And speaking of rad, the next episode of WrestleTalk Extra over on our Patreon page is up right now, where Ollie and Luke are looking at the breakup of The Shield. And in this episode, after The Shield have imploded, they're looking at the follow-up, including this other faction that broke up not long after.
About 2 months for me. Yeah. Back in 2014 in real time. But yeah, I was always like, well, I like Dean the most.
Yeah, Dean was my favourite. I remember watching Money in the Bank. I didn't watch it live. I watched it the following day on the network. And I remember being really excited because actually what I wanted to see was, because bear in mind I wasn't watching Raws and SmackDowns, I hadn't heard their new themes. So I was like, what is Dean's?
I always thought it was very Mick Foley. I know that's more of a car crash, but it felt Mick Foley to me. Because I always think Dean Ambrose, not John Moxley. John Moxley's a different person who ate Dean Ambrose. But Dean Ambrose in the early days was... his origin story is that promo against Mick Foley for the match that never happened. That's the first time I became aware of him. So I hear that music and I feel like it's Mankind style.
Yeah. And the thing I remember most around this time is, as you say, the idea that it doesn't feel like Roman's that bothered about the breakup of the Shield. Dean is well annoyed by it, but Roman's just, I'm already off in the main event. See you guys later. I'll catch you down the line.
And if anything, Roman was the guy for the last couple of months stressing brotherhood more than anything.
Yeah. Ethan Page debuting and Jordynne Grace appearing on NXT weren't the only major things to happen on last night's episode, as the new Women's North American Championship was also unveiled, and good God, that belt is incredible, isn't it? As I mentioned in that TLC episode when we spoke about the best belt designs, how do you make a title belt better? Make the strap white. I love it. And how do you make the NXT UK belt better? By making it a white strap. That's how you make all belts better. Sticking with NXT for now, there's seemingly been some unrest despite the big name debuts and surprises. Fightful Select's Corey Brennan reports that for seemingly quite a while now, NXT officials have been requesting the use of main roster star Tegan Nox. I say main roster star. You probably wouldn't know that though, since Nox hasn't wrestled for WWE since an April 20th house show in Belfast. NXT have reportedly been asking for Nox to come to NXT since before the draft. And there are also reportedly no immediate plans for Nox on the main roster either. She is seemingly expected to have a run in NXT soon though, so fingers crossed she gets to do some wrestling before long. One former NXT talent reportedly told Fightful Select that Tegan had unfinished business with NXT, even after her last appearance on the brand in October. But now, we move over to AEW in what is one of the more anticipated events of 2024, AEW finally securing their new network deal. It's been spoken about for a really long time, with a lot of weight being put onto how good this deal needs to be for the financial success of the company. And things seem to be going in a positive direction for AEW, with Tony Khan even praising Warner Bros. Discovery and their leadership in the Double or Nothing press conference. However, things might not be so peachy. Former Hollywood Reporter editor Matthew Baloney, now of the Puck Mailroom newsletter, is reporting that WBD CEO David Zaslav wants to keep AEW on TNT and TBS programming. However, Tony Khan is said to be disappointed with their current offer on the table. It's also noted though that losing AEW could potentially be a massive headache for Zaslav, considering that WBD may very well be losing the rights to the NBA, and losing two of the larger assets could further push them into hot water. AEW and WBD are currently in an exclusive negotiating window, meaning anyone else that might want to bid for AEW programming has to wait until that window expires. But that window might be closing very soon, as according to Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio, that expiration date is earlier than has been reported. So it might not even be WBD when it's all said and done, but there's no doubt interest from the network and from AEW, it's just whether the numbers match up. Having said all of that, that all might be conjecture and rumor, as Dave Meltzer has an interesting tidbit to add to the story. AEW sources reportedly reached out to Meltzer, denying that the offer was disappointing to Tony Khan, but confirming that negotiations were still ongoing. But here's the interesting wrinkle. Matthew Baloney, who wrote the report, has been pointed out online to be longtime friends with WWE CEO Nick Khan. Baloney even had Khan on his podcast before, leading some to believe that this was a planted piece. Whether it's true or not, disappointing or not, AEW does need a deal before the year is up, and time is starting to run out. Stay tuned to WrestleTalk.com for the latest in this story as it develops. Moving back over to WWE now, if you tuned in to watch this week's episode of Raw, you'd have missed the cliffhanger that was Liv Morgan planting a big old smoochy kiss on Dominic Mysterio. The end of the show cut off that angle, and now we know why. Fightful Select is reporting that WWE cameras tried their best to stay on Liv and Dom Dom to get the kiss, but it was missed by a few seconds. There was reportedly a timing and positioning miscommunication. This is entirely different from another bit of production on Raw that might have gone unnoticed, and that's that Bron Breakker was too fast for the production team. According to Fightful Select, they needed to change the camera angles quickly to try and hide him for his spear on Ricochet, because that boy's just too fast. That's a hell of an accolade, I'll be honest. Too fast for cameras. However, it's not all fun and games, as there's been several WWE corporate layoffs recently, and more names have been added to that list. On May 25th, it was confirmed several WWE layoffs had occurred, but how many and who exactly wasn't known. A few names have been confirmed since then, with Fightful Select naming former Senior VP of Entertainment Relations, Kristen Prouty, and Tavia Hartley, who worked as a talent operations and appearances manager. Post Wrestling and WrestleNomics then followed up to add that WWE's head of corporate social responsibility, Beth Fisher, had also been let go. go. Now PW Insider's Mike Johnson has added yet another name, that being Kirsten Velez, who worked as a manager in WWE's talent relations department. Velez had been with WWE since 2001 and had worked under former executive producer Kevin Dunn for many years. There was also more detail added to one of the other names that was let go, Kristen Prouty, the former senior VP of Entertainment Relations. Prouty was reportedly the casting director for the 2005 Diva Surge, being responsible for bringing in names like The Miz and the Bella Twins, as well as booking several celebrity appearances. As had been previously noted by Fightful Select, Prouty was seen as vital in bringing in Logan Paul to WWE. Now, as has been spoken about a lot this week, Becky Lynch's WWE contract is reportedly set to expire on June 1st, with no deal having been agreed as of yet. PW Torch's Wade Keller has some more insight into what could come next, saying that she's not, according to what she's telling people in WWE, going to AEW imminently. On top of this, multiple sources that are reportedly very close to her have confirmed that she will be taking a hiatus. Another source, who was described as a colleague of Lynch's, said that she'll be back in WWE someday, and they remain confident that they'll come to a deal, which obviously means Becky Lynch to AEW confirmed. Hey, announcement time! This Friday, over on the WrestleTalk podcast channel, to celebrate hitting 85,000 subscribers, we're going to be doing a 10-hour live stream where a bunch of us will be watching Money in the Bank matches, which will be randomized through the stream. The stream is public now, so go over there, set your reminders right now. There's a link in the description, press the video on screen. 10 hours! It's going to be so many matches. So many. God.